But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Greetings, meme warriors, Kekistani clerics, and Gamergate necromancers, and welcome to HBR News number 161. Dolezal's welfare, Musk vs. media, Sweden says sex is rape, and a lot more craziness. I'm your host, Brian Martinez, and I'm here with my esteemed alt-right entitled rape apologizing, room cleaning, incel, red pill Reddit posting, fedora tipping, fascist Pepe loving, Trump supporting, Nazi apologizing, This Is America memeing, women enslaving poo-poo heads, to look at the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Slam Bam Badger style.
I'm only one of those things, by the way.
Or maybe you're only not one of those things.
That's like a double negative.
Before we begin, I'm going to ask that you please smash that like button because it really helps our analytics. And if you haven't already subbed, please do so. Finally, be sure to turn on the notifications bell because apparently just subbing doesn't actually mean much because sometimes the videos just don't show up. And actually, that happened to me. I'm subbed to Honey Badger Radio and I was looking at my own feed and the fucking videos were not there. So you might as well do that. All right, so let's just get right into it. Today's Polecat panel consists of Maximilian Steamed Hams Darrett.
Aurora Borealis. At this time of year, at this time of day, in this part of the country, localized entirely within your kitchen.
Yes.
May I see it?
Hannah Puns of Steel 2018 Wallen. Dr. Internet Rule 14 is my mantra Ranamercam. And me, the Supreme Doge in Charge. We have a pretty interesting show for you guys today, so please be sure to continue the conversations both in the chat and in the comments section. On this week's HBR News show, we'll be looking at Elon Musk's breakup with the mainstream media, Rachael Dolezal's unfortunate attempt to complete her transition, PewDiePie's shameful treatment of thoughts, and Sweden basically going full retard on itself, as well as more fun stuff. So please stick around and let's watch the entropy grow. And finally, our bonus story for the patron-only after show. The New Yorker has the cure for women who live in constant fear of men who might be toxic and rapey and violent and stuff, by providing us a list of 7 signs that you can follow to make sure that your man has no spine or balls and acts like an obedient pet to feminism. I mean, an ally. An ally. Anyway, if you'd like to participate in our after shows either as an audience member or a participant, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. And if you don't want to wake up one morning and find yourself unable to find our content because YouTube finally dropped the axe on our channels, please go to badgerfeed.com. That's badgerfeed.com. So, I guess we can just get into the stories. Is there anything? Oh, you know what I just heard? This just is sort of breaking news, and this is actually not confirmed. I mean, I heard it through someone else, so I'm not 100% sure this is true. But apparently, the UK has lifted the media sort of reporting ban on the Tommy Robinson situation. And if I'm not correct, then I will not ask Mike to confirm that because that could cause trouble.
I know nothing. I've never heard of Tommy Robinson. I'm not here. Ignore me. Ignore me!
So, yeah, but that's what I heard, but I'm just an American Yank, so maybe I'm just wrong with my guns and my barbecue and my flag. So, we'll have to wait and see, but that's the word on the street. All right, so let's get into the stories. I think that this is going to be a good time. First, one that just was kind of heartwarming. 93-year-old girls just want to have fun. Ever since the death of her husband, a 93-year-old woman named Lucy has been a frequent guest of the YMCA in Temperance, Michigan. Although Lucy is a fan of the gym's pool, she still isn't terribly confident in her abilities. One of the trainers at the gym, Ben, comments, she's not a swimmer. She's always a little nervous around water. But with the help of her trainers, Ben and Taylor, Lucy decided to conquer her fears in style by sliding down the gym's spiral-shaped water slide. While hesitant at first, Lucy managed to make it down the entire length of the slide without incident and stated afterwards that she'd be willing to do it again. Now, I know you're probably saying, why would you go with this? I thought it was a nice story of a person that's actually conquering their fears. And I think that that's actually, even if they do it in their 90s, I just thought it was really sweet. And we're going to need a little bit of light because there's a lot of darkness in the shows usually. And this is to help, sort of help balance things out. I think that I can appreciate if somebody decides to try to conquer their fears rather than live in fear for their entire life. So, hey, even if it's in her twilight years, I'm glad that Lucy decided to take the plunge, so to speak.
So, are old women allowed in the YMCA? Because it was my understanding that it's for young men. Is it like a Boy Scout situation?
Actually, the
nominally
YMCA
only for boys, but women can come as well.
Well, see,
the YMCA has been open to women for most of my life.
So when they call things young men's whatever, they don't really mean it, do they?
When it started out, they used to provide a place to stay, and that was men only, men and boys only. I don't think women could stay, but most places now, most Ys now that I know of are just gyms, and they'll have a swimming pool and hot tub and all that, and anybody can get a membership. Same with the YWCA. Most of the ones I know of are not women only. Unless they provide, like some of them actually provide shelters. So like the shelters, unless it specifies, that both sexes can stay, you want to find out first. But yeah, the gyms seem to not be gendered.
Yeah, I guess it's just the name is just a formality at this point. Max, you wanted to say something? Max?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, my internet is just messing up. I was just about to say to Mike, I don't really appreciate your ageism there, because see, what you're supposed to say is 93 years young. And with that at the end, she definitely qualifies to be a part of the youth, whatever the other three letters mean, institution. But, I will just say that, well, actually, I'm kind of reluctant to say this. Obviously, this is a lovely story to hear, but is it wrong that the one thing that I'm actually taking from the story that causes me the greatest jubilation is the fact that she's representing the colors of the Simpsons kin ethno-state?
Well, let's take a look here. Yeah, I think that maybe we need to see more of that. Maybe that was a. So you're saying this is a dog whistle? Is that what you're saying? This is a dog whistle to the Simpsons kin ethno-state.
It doesn't need to be a dog whistle. It's clearly in everybody's best interest.
In other words, it's loud and proud.
Yes.
There's nothing secretive about it.
Yeah, speaking of loud and proud, there is a certain band once upon a time that sang a decent song about the YMCA. Very loud, very proud. Can't remember their names, though.
So I did get a super chat from Frank Tomeo for $2 Canadian. He says, "Conquering fears is important." I thought that was my whole point. We have a very sickeningly predominant victim culture, and to see someone that decided, even late in her life, even if it seems like a small thing, maybe that's how these things should start. Like when you're working on yourself, you should start as small as you can. Look at the things that are in your life that you can take control of, and take as much time as you need. So I say, good on you, Lucy. I'm glad you did it. You should totally do it again. I mean, what the hell do you have to lose, right? So this is good. And I'm glad. I mean, it's cute. I thought it was sweet. And I thought we should at least share this. And yeah, sure, it's a woman. I think that's even better, because it shows that she's decided to take charge of her life and do something. you know, and why not? Her husband is gone. She should try to enjoy what time she has left. So I'm happy for her. Anyway,
You misogynist, encouraging women to conquer their own fears. Don't you know we're supposed to live in fear our entire life because because the toxic masculinity.
that's right. I'm sorry, I got it wrong. Old women should live in fear forever. Who cares? Just continue. Stay afraid. Stay afraid. Anyway, so we're gonna move on to the next
Don't
short.
go into the water under any circumstances because you'll get drowned by toxic masculinity.
That yes, exactly. That's where the masculinity grows. All right, so next story, Elon Gate. CEO of both SpaceX and Tesla, Elon Musk, has started a Twitter feud with the journalists of Twitter after accusing Ben Collins, reporter for NBC rather, of living in a bubble of self-righteous sanctimony. Here's a quote. Ben Collins, I'm for real. When was the last time you spent time with a reporter in a newsroom who was doing anything other than interviewing you? I think it's important you come by and see the process. And Elon Musk says, you're missing the point and living in a bubble of self-righteous sanctimony. The public doesn't trust you. This was true before the last election and only got worse. Don't believe me? Run your own poll. When asked by Joshua Topolsky, editor and founder of The Outline, if it's in the interest of powerful people to defend the free press that exposes their lies or tries to tear it down, Musk responded by asking Topolsky who he thinks owns the press. Topolsky writes, "You're very smart, so I want you to think about this for a second. Do you think it's in the interest of powerful people to A, support a free press that exposes their lies, or B, tear it down so their lies are easier to tell? Now ask yourself why the polls look bad." Elon Musk, who do you think owns the press? Hello? Musk also expressed an interest in establishing his own website to rate journalists and publications in their trustworthiness. The tentative name for the website would be Pravda, the Russian word for truth. Musk's idea was met with a mixed reaction, and it's unclear if he intends to go through with it at this time.
Yeah, his only mistake was calling them journalists, which is a lot of people's mistake at this point, because activists, bloggers have taken over from journalists and are now doing the jobs that journalists should be doing. They're just doing opinion piece after opinion piece, attacking people's character and assassinating people's careers and whatnot. They're not journalists. I don't know where the line is anymore, but most of the people in high journalist positions are not acting like journalists at all. So he's falling into that same trap as the political correctness thing. Like, it's not political correctness, we just call it that. And these people are not journalists, we just call them that.
Yep.
One interesting thing just to add on top of that Pravda meaning truth in Russian. It was also, if I'm not mistaken, an old Soviet era publication where they put out communist propaganda. I could be wrong about the details of that, but I generally got the idea right. So he was just choosing that name as a joke, kind of.
Ah.
Yeah,
Well,
but
it might be a jab at the whole Russian collusion conspiracy too.
there you go. That'd be interesting if he actually admitted that in the future. But stories like this that just it makes me wonder why, because with all the animosity that there is towards the press, not just from the right but on the left, and you see reports that range from anywhere between 6% to 30% of people in the U.S. trusting the media. That means like 70% or more people don't. And you'd think that the press would go out of their way to try and figure out why that is. Maybe they'd try to do some introspection to understand what it is that they're doing wrong so that they can gain back the trust of the populace and get them to trust that they're actually giving them important information and reliable information. But they don't. They because doing that would essentially make them want to confront the fact that their entire career has been based on perpetuating lies in the service of narratives, and that would make you the lowest of the low. And nobody ever wants to, especially these people, want to come to terms with the fact that they're shit at their job. So maybe that's why.
I think they actually, I think they honestly believe they're good at their job.
I want to point something out too when you're done.
Yeah. I'm done. That was all I wanted to say.
Oh, they're good at their job. It just depends on how you define their job. But anyways, go ahead.
The media doesn't know what their job is. They think their job is to change the world or save the world or teach people their point of view because it's better than other points of view. That's not journalism. Even the American Press Institute can tell you. I mean, the American Press Institute sort of sets standards and basically describes the standards for what is journalism. And their definition is it's the activity of gathering, assessing, creating, and presenting news and information. It's also the product of these activities. What distinguishes it from other activities and products by the same types of people are the characteristics and practices of it. These elements don't just separate it; they demonstrate that it's indispensable. And these elements, what makes it different from other forms of communication, which they label a lot of stuff pointless babble, but it is that it has a purpose. It provides people with verified information, not opinion, not propaganda, not limited information because people can't handle knowing the whole truth and making smart decisions based on it, but verified information they can use to make better decisions. And it's practices that have to include that verification, and they have to include reporting the full story. They have to include reporting all of the verified facts. So what we're seeing instead is a large body of people who call themselves journalists, who report half or less of any given story and use the way they report that part of the story to falsely frame whatever it is they're reporting on in a light that promotes their political perspective. And it's done on both sides of the political fence. You have to watch both sides or read both sides in order to get, a full half of the story. And then you have to dig in order to find the rest. I mean, he's got a major point there that journalism isn't what most of the media does. They don't know their job. They haven't known their jobs since Woodward and Bernstein covered Watergate. And the reason that was significant is because that was one of the main things that turned the public's belief in what journalism is from finding out what's going on in the world to finding out how you should feel and think about what's going on in the world.
And to let it be known that I am completely aware of the irony of doing a show where I comment on news stories while at the same time not trusting any of the sources 100% from the stories that I get, which is why when it sounds like I don't have a lot of verified sources, I have to preface by saying, I don't know, this is coming from BBC, so who knows if this is true, or CNN, or whatever.
Us either. There's no reason you should trust us either. Look
absolutely. Yeah, we get corrected on occasion, and I'm fine with it because at the end of the day, I don't have an interest in telling people what the truth is. I have an interest in finding the truth. And to find the truth means that you got to get a lot of things wrong talking about it in public. So I'm okay with doing that.
Yeah, and you should especially not trust us because if you look at your screen currently, we're a bunch of anthropomorphic voice boxes. I mean, there's a panda, there's a dog, I don't know what the hell that is.
A badger?
Badger, yes. And I'm a cartoon. I want to be cartoon characters. So obviously, we're a very special breed of people, if that's the noun you want to use. So obviously just take our opinions with a grain of salt and contrast that with a bunch of other sources. That's kind of what we've been saying from the beginning, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's just important to do that, you know. So I don't want to become like many other sort of news commentators where they basically say, you know, the buck stops with me. I have the truth. I know what I'm talking about. It's like Stephen Fry said in the debate, you know, I try not to approach anything with absolute certainty and leave it, just put out there what I have and then let other people go through it and correct me where I need to be corrected, you know.
That way you don't have to worry about getting fucking owned in case you are wrong. If you approach everything with a sense of humility, then when you're actually proven wrong and you accept that you are wrong, people will actually respect you for that. And that's why Stephen Fry is the fucking man.
Yeah. And that's why I don't double down. So we got some super chats, and then I'll move on to the next story. Oh, by the way, one more thing I'm going to say about this. Before this happened, okay, Elon Musk was the darling of the press and of the media. They loved him. They kissed his ass all the time. He was like one of their favorite people, especially in tech. Now that this has happened, the hit pieces are coming. Just watch. They're going to come after him in a big way because he committed the one cardinal sin. He criticized them.
He was considered scientifically progressive, technologically progressive, in the actual sort of meaning of that word. So naturally, he must be politically progressive as well. Oh, it seems he has a problem with the politically progressive. So it turns out he's not progressive at all. This is regress. What he's doing with rockets and cars in space. He's doing it because he hates women in tech. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't stand women in gaming.
Okay, so we got some super chats. Ann Capistan has chimed in. French Honey Badger gives us $5 and says, I don't like Elon Musk's business. He gets way too much hype despite being a welfare queen. Speaking of welfare queens, next story. But I love that he kicks the media in the clam. Did you just assume the media's gender? French Honey Badger again gives us $5 and writes, the term Pravda is also used by Project Veritas to talk about the media. I think in general it is a way to talk about propagandists in general.
There you go.
Yeah, Musk does get a lot of money from the government, and he promotes essentially a form of welfare on the idea that this time will be uniquely different from all other points in history where technological advances have eliminated less technological jobs and created new jobs that require greater technological knowledge and capability. This time that won't happen, and this time humanity won't increase what is a basic level of knowledge that people can handle the way it has throughout history. And so this time, all of a sudden, there's going to be no jobs, and everybody needs to be on welfare, although they call it universal basic income. And the proponents of the idea can't seem to counter that question. Why this time it's going to be so dramatically different when every other time in history we've had technological advancements, this has not occurred. And so yeah, he's a welfare queen two ways. He gets money and he encourages the idea that everybody else should get money from the government. Question is, where's that money going to come from?
Should he get
the government? The government never gets a dime that it doesn't take from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to see what would happen if state-sponsored space exploration went up against private space exploration. Because people have often said, Neil deGrasse Tyson particularly has often said, you can't go to the moon or go to Mars without a government. If you haven't got some kind of conglomerated force sort of putting all the capital together, it's impossible to explore space. And a lot of us have heard that and thought, really?
Yeah.
It'd be nice if some kind of an entrepreneur came along with loads of money who's willing to try and do space exploration on a private budget. And he's in many ways making you guys at NASA look like punks, you know?
Yep. Okay, so we got another super chat from the Great Indoors, 1979. He gave us €5. Thank you, sir. And he writes, if Pravda wants to conduct honest journalism, its financial solution, or I'm sorry, its financial section could bury Tesla into the ground. Hoki Bukisa gives us $1.99 and writes, HBR is fake news. Sad. And French Honey Badger gives us 5 again and says...
Honey badgers aren't even people, they're animals.
Yes.
Yeah, what did I just say?
Hey, does that mean I have to start learning how to play drums?
French Honey Badger gives us $5 and writes, if the government needs to subsidize an industry or technology, it means it cannot survive on its own, and as such is a waste of precious resources.
There you go.
And Capistan has spoken. Okay, so we're going to get into the next story. Guess who's black?
Oh, Brian.
Yes.
Before you start reading, I just got to do one quick thing.
Go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
Pretty good. Okay, Nkechi Diallo, more commonly known by her birth name of Rachael Dolezal, holy shit, is that actually her name? Is back in the spotlight, but for vastly different reasons. You may remember Dolezal from 2015 when she quit her position from the Spokane, Washington chapter of the NAACP after it was revealed that she was not African American as she had claimed to be, but was in fact white. Dolezal has since claimed that she is transracial and that, quote, the idea of race is a lie.
Well, every Homo sapiens is African, technically, because we're all ultimately evolved from Kalahari Bushmen, right? So anyone who lives, any Homo sapiens who lives in America is by default African American. I wonder if that's going to be their next avenue in arguing this. We're all African whatevers at the end of the day.
Yes.
It might be, but they're going to be up against DNA testing that shows otherwise. There's even people with very dark skin in the United States who find out that they have no DNA tracing back to Africa, that it only traces back to India. And so there are races in terms of different skin colors or different heritages in today's society, partly because we've spread out so much and become so diverse that not everybody's roots trace back to the same group. And the fact is, even if you trace farther back and get a common ancestor, the combinations from various people, living together and mating together and producing children together, you end up eliminating some of the DNA that was original to your ancestors. So, it's one of the reasons why if your ancestor of a particular ethnicity is too many generations back, you might not be considered of that ancestry anymore, even if you have an ancestor that is of that ethnicity. And so, like in this case, she can't even claim that. So they may make that argument, but it's going to be a hard sell for anybody that understands how genetics work.
Mm-hmm. Well, it gets better. This because we know about Rachael Dolezal. She was in the news a while back, but this particular story gets better. So Rachael Dolezal now stands accused of welfare fraud by the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services after it was revealed that she deposited over $84,000 in her bank account between 2015 and 2017. During this time period, Dolezal claimed to be making less than $500 a month in income, used nearly $9,000 in public assistance funds, and only reported $20,000 for a one-time speaking job. Dolezal's court date has been set for June 6th. It is unclear if she plans on claiming that she is trans impoverished as a defense.
Hey, it works for the Clintons.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so why Rachael Dolezal's funny. She actually is, I think she's looking at prison time, to be honest. So
Yeah, that's actually pretty serious.
Yeah.
That amount of money, she could be looking at prison. She could be looking at being ordered to pay back all that money too.
Yeah. Yeah, so way to go, Rachel. Way to go for also putting out adding to that stereotype of black welfare queens. Nice.
Well, and black people being criminals because she
Yeah.
has committed a crime. Like, I hope they disown her now. There were a lot of people on the left who sort of swallowed the string,
Yeah.
and they were like, "That's just." A friend of mine made an analogy during the 7 Years in Hell case where they felt that the DV organization was defending the liar because they had taken that string. A cat can't spit. It's one of the reasons why you can't let it play with string on its own. If it starts swallowing that string, it'll end up having to swallow the whole thing and it can kill it. This is a similar situation in that here you have regressives, not the classic liberal, not the prejudice fighting, genuinely prejudice fighting, different strokes, economic considerations, classic liberal, but the regressive, elitist, shame-toting, progressive stack pushing regressive. They've swallowed that string. They accepted her lie that she was transracial, and said, yeah, we could consider her black. We consider her black now. You have to consider. She says she's transracial. There's no such thing as real race. Then she identifies as black. We accept that. And now they've got this stereotype to deal with because she claims to be black and now she's committed a crime, although welfare fraud is sort of more similar to white collar crimes than the crimes that are stereotyped for blacks. It's definitely not thought of as a violent crime, even though welfare comes from taxes, and as anyone from Ancapistan will tell you, taxes are theft. But in any case, yeah, she's perpetuating a stereotype, and they're going to have to swallow that too. They can't spit out that string, and it's going to go all the way through, and it's going to cause damage.
It's true. Rachel, you need to, while you're in prison, I suggest that you wash your ass. You got to wash your ass. Yeah, definitely.
Rachel does not know the way. It's a spiritual thing.
Okay, so we're going to go on to the... Good luck, Rachel. Stop stealing from poor people. We're going to go on to the next... Well, I got some super chats, actually. And Capistan says, people who promote universal basic income do not understand what money is. Money represents what you contributed to society but have yet to consume it. Frank Tomeo gives us $2 Canadian and says, people on the left don't swallow the right stuff. Yeah, that's why I don't date them anymore. All right, so moving on to the next story. PewDiePie is teaching his audience that women were asking for it. Vice covered a feud over a false copyright claim between Felix Kjellberg, PewDiePie, and popular Twitch streamer Alinity Divine, because I'm sure that's her real name. This is a perfect example of how women are still objectified, vilified, and exploited in the gaming community simply because they are women. PewDiePie had uploaded a video testing the Dolby Eye tracker that shows in real time what a user is looking at on their screen. One of the videos he watched was called Sexiest Twitch Girl Streamers, April 2017, number 2, and it featured Alinity. While Kjellberg struggled to keep his eyes off of their chests, he jokingly called women in the video stupid Twitch thoughts, a derogatory term for women that stands for that hoe over there. End quote. Alinity saw a video and retaliated by filing a copyright claim with YouTube. PewDiePie uploaded a video in response to Alinity's retaliation and the claim, and, according to Vice, suggested that Alinity somehow deserves the abuse she is getting online for wearing revealing clothes. PewDiePie says this is what he actually said. You're just playing games with the shortest skirt ever. That's our fault for looking at it in any sexual way, right? I know you don't want to portray yourself to be the smartest person, but I know you're not that dumb to not be aware of what you're doing. Showing your underwear on screen, that's our fault, right? After the backlash...
We should invent some kind of trouser. And some kind of underwear to go with it that has a kind of hole cut out of it, and perhaps some kind of upholstery, so everyone can see your balls, and they're sort of perked up a little bit in the ball equivalent of a Wonder Bra. So we're all walking around with holes in our pants and our balls just poking out and getting shoved up. I want to see
so like
how
a
many
hairband.
Mike, I think you and I should go into business.
I want to see how many women have trouble not looking at that. Because I would have trouble not looking at that. If someone's balls are poking out of a hole in their clothing. And it's kind of a similar thing when your tits are poking out of a hole in your clothing.
Yeah.
But you've got the wrong body part, okay? Girls' racks are on their chest. Guys' racks are the area of their back across their shoulders. And that area where your curve of your neck goes down onto the shoulder.
The traps.
That's your rack. That's definitely the equivalent. And so putting that on display.
If there's
you
a
would
way
definitely
to
get chicks looking at that. Get
so
chicks
basically,
looking
yeah.
at your abs and your pecs, basically, and your back. It's not that nobody cares about the balls. It's that those other things are definitely more of an equivalent to tits.
So basically, you're enhancing your trapezius muscles.
Yes,
The
yes,
traps.
definitely. Not, in other words, not all traps are gay.
But you can tell from the shoulders which ones are gay.
There you go. Yeah, or at least which women are straight.
Somebody give me the
Or
time
bi.
code of Hannah just saying not all traps are gay, please. I want to
Use it.
low key exploit that.
There we
That's
go.
going on the soundboard.
That one's going on the soundboard.
Yes,
All right.
just to repeat myself, not all traps are gay.
So what you're saying is not. No, wait, no, I can't say it because then somebody will use that against me. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
All right. So
what you're saying is all traps are gay, and therefore all people are pigs. Yeah.
There we
Yes.
go.
Kathy Newman meme in there somewhere. Somebody make it.
there you go. All right.
Consider the
So
lobster.
we got a the pig hierarchy is less dominant though. It's a little bit more of an egalitarian society. Everyone's in the mud when you're in the pig hierarchy. So we got some super chats. French Honey Badger gives us $2 and corrects me on my pronunciation and says it's pronounced Shellberg, not Kelberg. Thank you. Field of Bears gives us $5 and says not all women are thoughts, but all thoughts are bitches. Or B1 Ches. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce it.
I always pictured this thought thing backfiring on us. Because even though they have a bunch of words for all the people they don't like, and naming the things they don't like is their favorite thing, if they hear any of us sort of defining a term and defining certain women as that term in a sort of vague sort of way, there's no way they're not going to jump on that. As this is the latest misogynist trend in these evil men's rights fucking language police.
So, in other words, a thought crime.
That's
There we go.
That is correct.
Got a million of them, folks.
Okay. After
I gotta say the thing that
Okay.
really pisses me off about this is like you dress like that because you want looked at. Then you turn around and shame people for looking. Guys don't do that. When guys wear muscle shirts and they get stared at by a chick, I've never seen a guy be like, oh my god, that predatory woman is staring at my muscles in my muscle shirt. Shame on her. I feel endangered. Never.
I totally do that.
I've seen guys get mobbed and not be happy about that because nobody wants to get mobbed. But just having somebody look or mention or compliment or even awkwardly compliment or be crude and obnoxious about it, you really have to violate boundaries for a guy to complain, especially if he specifically dresses for the purpose of drawing attention to his body. And, it's like, hey, I worked on this. Everybody look and compliment me. And there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is when women do the same thing, but then turn around and like use victimhood as a form of humble bragging. Oh my God, everybody is so crude to me. Everybody wants me so much because I've worked so hard on my body, and isn't it just terrible? I can't just look good for myself, and I'm a victim, and blah blah blah. The idea of looking good for yourself is bullshit. The truth is, you don't have that kind of judgment unless you are judging yourself by other people's responses to your body, to your appearance. And this, you show your underwear on the screen because you want the views. You show your underwear on the screen because you want the compliments, and you don't really have any business bitching when somebody points out that you did that. The answer is, hell yeah, I did. I did. Show my underwear on the screen because I wanted views. Showed my underwear on the screen because I wanted compliments. You know, and that's it. And there's nothing wrong with that. So quit your bitching. Just
Yeah.
take a look or walk
To-
away.
To be fair, I just want to say this real quick. To be fair to Twitch streamers, what they call the titty streamers or the thought streamers, they most of the time they don't have any shame in their game and they know it. They're fitness models, women that they're young and they're good looking and they take care of themselves. And when they go on Twitch, they are either just sitting there and chit-chatting with their audience, or they're playing a video game, but they have the game is the really tiny screen, and like their cleavage is like the big part of the screen, but they don't have any shame in it. Like, they know that's what they're doing and they're okay with it. But you do get the occasional hypocrite that is doing the exact same thing but does not want anyone to point it out, essentially, or they only want to get their attention if it's positive attention, or whatever it is, but they're trying to control the way they're being perceived instead of just owning it. So the ones that own it, good on you. Get those donations or whatever. I'm glad for you. But if you're pretending like that's not really what you're doing there, you're lying to yourself. Just stop. Get some help.
And it really is. There's no shame in it. Watching an attractive young person react to something that you have taken an interest in and enjoyed, like a game or a movie or anything like that, can be entertaining on its own level and in its own right. And anybody that wants to enjoy that entertainment has as much right to want to enjoy that entertainment as the person who wants somebody to demonstrate how the game works or critique the game and watch that as a form of entertainment. Nobody should be criticizing that these things exist. The only real thing to criticize is if people are dishonest about it. Hell, when I was a kid, the way I would react to movies and cartoons, my father has told me repeatedly, people would watch me instead of whatever was being watched in the theater, because I was very animated, and if it was scary, I was on the edge of my seat, and if it was funny, I was laughing my ass off. It was like that cat watching the horror movie meme. And there's nothing wrong watching a person react to things for fun. Reaction videos are fun, and it just people get too uptight about this, and in particular, feminists and women's advocates get too uptight about stuff like this. Let people be themselves, and let people decide for themselves what's entertaining, and entertainers decide for themselves how they're going to entertain. And if it sells, then that means that it's worthy of being marketed. And if it doesn't, it'll go by the wayside. And it's not anybody's business whether it sells or it goes by the wayside, but the people involved in the transaction. Period.
Yep. Did anyone else? I thought Mike was going to say something.
Yeah. Like, since I became famous, or semi-famous, semi-famous, I've discovered what it's like to be one of those people who fell in love with sometimes, or at least gets the occasional sexual comment or proposition from strangers. So I've begun to see the world from the average woman's point of view. And yes, there is something tedious about being popular, as entitled as it sounds. Is actually, it can be tiresome when everyone's falling in love with you, to be somewhat exaggerative. But I would never dream of complaining about it. When it comes to first world problems, the first worldiest of them all is boo-hoo, everyone's in love with me. And I'm never going to complain about that because I've been on the other side of that equation there, where all I could think was boo-hoo, no one's in love with me. And that is worse, folks. I mean, like I say, there's something unnerving about being surrounded by people who love you, but it's not as unnerving as that sense that you're surrounded by people who will not and cannot ever love you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But privilege is invisible to those who have it, as we know.
which of the two options do you want? Do you want all the attention? Do you want everybody to be in love with you with all of that, all the annoyances that come along with that? Or would you rather not have any attention at all? It's one of those two. And in most cases, one is almost exclusive to women and the other is almost exclusive to men.
Yeah, it is something to think about.
Shit pile number one, shit pile number two.
Okay, well, let us continue. I could go into that whole bit, but I think it'll make the show long. But it could make for its own topic. I'll have to think about that. Let that one marinate for a bit. So after the backlash from PewDiePie's response, Alinity apologized and said that it was her agency who filed the copyright claim without her knowledge. PewDiePie had cut Alinity out of the video after she complained on her broadcast. According to the Vice author, what PewDiePie is doing isn't just opportunistic and gross. He is telling his audience of millions that men are not responsible for their actions and that when women dress a certain way, they are asking for it. Of course, that's what they would say. PewDiePie retweeted...
That's not what that means. It doesn't... They're treating being responsible for your actions as a zero-sum game there.
Yeah.
In an engagement or interaction, whatever you want to call it, wherein a woman puts out that bait, and that is bait. When you show your tits or you show your ass, when I showed my legs all the time when I was younger, that was bait. That was absolutely bait, and it was good bait too. It worked a lot. And I had model's legs when I was a teenager. And sometimes it worked too well. Sometimes I had to tell people how old I was, and then they would run. But in any case, you're responsible for that. And when someone responds, they're responsible for their response. That's a two-way street. It's not one way, regardless of which direction is complaining. It's two-way. And it's a response. And there is a level of self-control you're responsible for, but there's also a level of complaining that you're responsible for. You don't, get injured because somebody looked at your ass or your tits or your legs, or because somebody complimented you on your brain. You're not injured by that. You got nothing to complain about, and especially if you put out the bait. But even if you didn't, there's no complaints there. I will admit, I often kind of turn into Goofy from Disney when I get compliments, rather than dealing with them graciously, because I suck at that.
She does laugh too.
I do. It's awful. I get really embarrassed. But it's not a complaint about the other person's behavior. It's just I don't know what to do with myself in that situation. I never really have, other than, flirt back. And when I'm not in a position where I'm going to flirt back, I don't know what else to do. But in any case, there's no one direction in that. And it's dishonest of them to portray it that way. It's really dishonest of them.
No, absolutely. This is just, Vice trying to take advantage of this and opportunistically jumping on the PewDiePie's in the news bandwagon. It's bullshit. And of course, they're not journalists; they're activists, which is something else we established already. So, PewDiePie retweeted a video of Alinity admitting she came to Canada from Colombia to become a doctor, marrying and then divorcing a Canadian man to do it. The PewDiePie fan who shared the video is attempting to report Alinity to the Canadian Immigration Control to get her deported, which is something that goes beyond online harassment and threatens her physical safety.
Whoa, 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 whoa. There's no way that Alinity, that chick, came to Canada to become a fucking doctor. Just, that's as unbelievable as what's her name? Denise Richards being an a physicist in that one James Bond movie.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
just no
right,
way.
right.
What was her name?
Well,
Christmas
Yeah.
Jones.
There you
Yeah.
go. I thought Christmas only came once a year. Go ahead, Anna.
if she believed she could do it, and that's what she did, if she came to Canada thinking that she was going to become a doctor, and if she falsely married and then divorced a Canadian man just to get her citizenship and committed fraud, reporting that fraud to authorities is not harassment. You are not being harassed if you commit a crime and the crime that you committed becomes public and somebody contacts authorities and says you committed a crime. You are not being harassed. You are being reported for a crime you committed. Can you imagine turning this around on some guy with some other type of crime? If it was turned around on a guy who it came out, had committed a sex crime, we aren't disagreeing that this sex crime happened, but you're only reporting it to harass him, and now he's in danger because you reported that crime. Feminists would go nuts. They'd call bullshit immediately. They did that even when Cosby's guilt was in doubt in parts of the media. And to me, I still have problems with the ruling, but feminists threw a fit about even doubt being expressed regarding the accusations. But for crying out loud, if a crime was committed and the criminal is reported to authorities, that's not harassment. That's your civic duty. That's part of being a citizen of the country. And immigration fraud is a crime, no matter how liberal you might be about who can and cannot immigrate. Immigration fraud is a crime.
Uh-huh.
If that whole thing about her marrying a dude and then divorcing him to get citizenship is true, not only are you a criminal, you're also a cunt. Capital C, small u, small n, small t, period. Underlined, italicized.
In Impact.
We deal with these things outside the Crown Court. We have a cunt court just for cunts like you.
So what happened next? According to Vice, a 2016 study of 1 billion comments sent on Twitch showed that in female streamers' channels, the most frequently used words were things like boobs, hot, OMG, smile, and babe. For men, it was more like melee, shields, glitch, and reset. On Twitch, men make up 65% of streamers, according to 2016 statistics from social media analytics like Statista. 35% are women. The thumbnails for most of Internet Fails, a channel with 180,000 subscribers, for example, are screenshots of women in compromising positions. How they got into those compromising positions with so few clothes on, nobody knows, or do they? It's on purpose. They do it on purpose. That's all you need to know. This is so that they get more views and it works. It's the way the approach that they take.
It's like they're staring into the camera and turning in that special position where you can see their boobs and their butt in the same shot, and that's called a compromising position. Somehow, someone managed to take a photograph of this woman as she's smoldering into the camera.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man,
It's funny. Anytime women exercise their sexual power they're considered to be compromising themselves. Men, when they exercise their sexual power, they're accused of compromising women.
Yep.
It's just the double standard is so stark. And
young girls can literally be twerking against you, like rubbing their genitals against you, and people will look at that and think, "Oh, they're degrading themselves. That man should know better."
he could be trying to run away, and they'd still say that. And then there's this thing about the words being used. Perhaps it's because what's being put on most prominent display in girls' videos are boobs being hot, their smiles, and that they are a babe. Whereas more frequently what's being prominently displayed, or most prominently displayed in the video when guys make videos, is their gameplay, because they can't get away with getting viewership on that site by showing off their bodies. They have to actually provide something more than that.
Yep.
And once again, if it's watched by more men, more straight and bi men, you're going to see more viewers finding women's reactions and women's attractiveness entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not a criticism of the girls who do this, but of the people who are being dishonest about the factors involved.
Here's a stat that I'd like to see, and maybe somebody should look into this. I'd like to know how, if these booby streamers make more money than the actual male gamers, even the best male gamers, like the top booby streamers and the top male gamers, in terms of like the what they're making on Patreon plus what they're making in terms of their tips. I wonder if there's a difference, if there's a pay gap, if you will, between those two groups. Because I have to say that if all you have to do is not eat like a pig, exercise somewhat, and then get in front of a camera and look good and be young and hot, and you rake in the money. You don't even have to be good at the games, because a lot of times they're not. You just rake in the money versus what I would assume is the male gamers that are doing the Twitch streams. They either have to be really good or they have to be really, really entertaining, like really funny, even if they're not really good at the game. And so I would like to see that. I'd like to see the numbers on that. Do the women make more? Do the men make more? I'd be very curious to see those numbers, because Vice isn't telling us that.
Yeah, I want to see men in tech go up against women in porn and see who has the better wage gap.
Yes, exactly. All right, I got some...
It's an anime fight of your dreams.
I got some super chats. I'm going to go ahead and read through, and then I'll finish. Well, actually, let me finish the articles. I'm at the end. So apparently the comment sections of these booby streamer compilations videos, according to Vice, are an endless spigot of hate. To that, I say this.
Be gone.
Be gone, fuck!
What's that from?
The internet. The internet has birthed this beautiful thing for us. So super chats. Hoki Bukisa gives us $4.99 and says, so what you're saying is traps can't be gay? Offended. The Great Indoors gives us Great Indoors 1979. I apologize for that. Gives us another €2 and says YouTube doesn't want me to send super chat except for this. Phil Rader gives us $5 Canadian and leaves no comment. Thank you, Phil. I hope that was what you intended to do. Otherwise, I don't know if I'll be able to go back and see what you meant to send us. Redicus gives us $2 and says, what did Dankula call it? The 5 levels of thought? And Tyler Preston gives us $10 and says, have you guys ever heard of this YouTuber called Big Joel? I found a multi-part video from the Blue Pill Reddit, home of the Beta Cucks, where he deconstructs Cassie J's Red Pill documentary. No, I'll have to look it up. I'm sure that it's very fucking educational.
I really hope you don't get a copyright strike for it, but don't worry, you probably won't.
Yeah.
Because Cassie's not in their pocket, you see.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next story. This one should spark some conversation. All sex in rape. In Sweden, all sex is now rape.
What else is new? Next story.
Women's
All P and B
activists.
sex is now rape. That's what they mean, right?
Yeah, but in Sweden, rape is not rape.
It's ripping.
That's Great Indoors 1979, €2, eagerly awaiting Brian's thought stream on Twitch. Yes, I'm going to get one of those ball enhancing things that Mike was talking about.
Well, you could do like that guy that wore Daisy Dukes for several days or several weeks or whatever, and posted pictures to embarrass his daughter for wearing Daisy Dukes, and she did quit.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Yeah, I'll just need something that enhances your testicle cleavage. Like
yeah,
an
if you
extra.
want to stop your daughter from wearing miniskirts and boob tubes, then just wear a miniskirt and a boob tube. Whether you're a father or a mother, your little girl will look at that and think, "Oh my God, that's the grossest thing I've ever seen. I don't want to be anything like that."
It
When will parents
works.
learn that you teach your
Works every
children
time.
by reverse psychology. It's the best way.
Yes.
Okay.
There was another one that imitated his daughter's Instagram pictures with much hilarity. Same thing. They were all, thought images, but when he did it, it showed how ridiculous they really were.
Yeah, I've seen those. Those are pretty great. All right. So anyway, so all sex is rape in Sweden. Women's activists in Sweden are celebrating after a new controversial rape law they were campaigning for was voted in. All
Women's
sex
activists?
Yes.
You mean misandrists? We can do that, right? They're not even calling them feminists anymore. They're calling them women's activists. Meanwhile, men's activists, they're obviously male supremacy group.
No. All sex is now rape by default. What does this mean, though? What this means is anytime sexual activity is initiated in Sweden, both parties must formally consent or risk being charged with rape under the revised Swedish legal code. This law makes no exceptions for long-term committed relationships. As the Sentinel points out, all it would take to get a spouse locked away is for one partner to enter a police department and state that they didn't formally consent to sex with their spouse of 20 plus years the night before.
That immigrant didn't rape me in the alleyway. I consented. It was my fault for being white. Being white, I naturally consented to being raped by this immigrant. Therefore, it wasn't rape. But my husband, he's been raping me for 20 years.
Yes.
Why it's so sad that on a deep level, I feel like that could actually happen.
It could.
As absurd as Mike just made it, I still feel like it could actually happen.
Well, I'm not saying it could as in, there are definitely people that would do this. I'm saying it could as in legally, it could. Like legally you could do it.
What do they mean formally consent? Do they actually mean a contract?
With a form.
Or do they mean a verbal contract?
Yeah, it's been under discussion.
I don't know. We'll find out. I don't know.
Yeah. You know how everybody's like, oh, Sweden, it's the type of country that should be emulated across the world for their health care and their social safety net and all that. Well, I'd like to see what they say in 30 years when it's going to be like fucking children of men and all the men are not going to be having any sex with the women and there's no children being produced, and then Clive Owen is just helping the one black lady across the river. Anyways, spoiler alert.
It's a shame.
I want to know what the working class men of Sweden think. Because we always end up asking the rich people and the women about what's going on in Sweden. Oh yeah, it's great. We're the best country in the world. But you never hear about that buffer class of people that necessarily have to exist in order to platform all the fucking social justice.
Yeah.
Anywhere where any country that seems to be full of SJWs isn't really, because SJWs can't exist without that buffer zone of people just doing their fucking jobs and not complaining.
All I know is that there's going to be a MGTOW explosion in Sweden. That's what I think is going to happen. It's going to be Sweden is going to become the epicenter mecca of all MGTOW. But let me get through the rest of the article. Maybe we'll get some more education about how this super egalitarian utopian society is going to take care of the rape problem. What this means, I already read that. Today's vote marks a huge victory for women's rights activists in Sweden who have been campaigning tirelessly for this change for more than a decade. So that's well before there was a migrant crisis, I think. Well before. But convenient. Despite gender not mentioned in the text of the law, it has been feminists that have pushed for this change. This is more than a tad worrisome. The Sentinel asks, would a man's claim of rape, because his consent was not formally documented, be taken as seriously? From the article. Supporters of today's vote have long since criticized what they call old-fashioned and outdated definitions of rape based on physical force or threat and coercion, preferring instead a more open-ended view on rape. Let's open our minds to the rapey possibilities. A more open-ended view on rape that isn't so strictly defined. We got to
If you were just
loosen.
sharpening a pencil. You weren't really sharpening a pencil. You were raping. It's an open-ended definition.
What these advocates choose to ignore is that as species, we have a mountain of historical evidence backing up the fact that laws without clear boundaries and definitions open up the door to all sorts of abuses. You don't fucking say.
We only invented language like it was a long time ago in our scale, but it was only a few thousand years ago, maybe 100,000 years ago at the most, is when we invented a language, is when we invented a sound that means yes. So, unless you believe that everything up until that point in history was rape, is that what you believe? Can that be what you believe?
Oh. Sweden. Please keep fucking up so that we know in our country, when we see that happen, we know we don't want any of that shit. I hope Bernie Sanders tries to run that on his platform. We want to be like Sweden. No, we don't.
Sweden's just trying to be like Californian universities. I think they're leading the charge at this point.
It's true.
This is just yes means yes, right? It's the same shit.
It is. It's yes means yes. But if you don't say anything and you have sex, you can be arrested. You have broken the law. And the feminists are looking to expand the definition of rape. And I don't think they know. There are no brakes on that car. It's just going to keep going. I don't know where it's headed. But it's interesting that they were asked, there was a question asked, could a man do this to his wife or his girlfriend? And they just dodged it. They just said, we need to broaden the definition of rape. We need to be more inclusive. We need to be more inclusive on what rape means, as long as it's only directed at women.
And the
Apparently
more
it's
they...
old-fashioned and outdated to refer to rape as physical force or threat and coercion. And surely those three things do cover everything that can be rape and any other violent crime. Without physical force or threat and coercion, surely no violent crime has been committed. But no, see, because words count as violence. And fucking staring off into space and saying, I'd like to be inside that, is also rape of some sort.
Yep.
Well, and the thing is, the more they dilute the definition of rape, the less serious they make the crime. And this is something that I dealt with on Reddit. You had feminists coming in and advocating yes means yes, but then they wanted rape dealt with as the worst experience a woman could possibly ever have, the most traumatizing thing in the world that can happen to you, and it's not. I was more traumatized when I heard this is our last chance during the emergency C-section that I had to have when my son was born, because I misunderstood and thought the doctor was saying this was our last chance to get him out alive. That's the most traumatic experience I've ever had in my life. Having that moment of thinking, I was going to lose my baby, and who by the way just graduated last week.
Congratulations.
But and on his behalf, thank you. But he worked hard for his graduation. But in any case, this idea that it has to be the most traumatic experience you've ever had in your life, that is belied by claiming that rape can be committed by accident, which is what they are saying here. If they're saying that a woman can engage in a sex act with another person actively, and that other person, male or female, can then become a rapist because the woman didn't say or sign something that says, yes, I want to do this. that makes rape an accident. And it is suddenly no longer a reprehensible act. It is so suddenly no longer the behavior of someone who can be considered a monster. It is suddenly no longer the most traumatic experience of your life. It's just an accident. And faux pas, accidental rape is going to become a thing. And the crime is going to disappear because people are going to get fed up with having something that can apparently be done accidentally now treated the same as or worse than incidents where somebody shows up with a weapon and mass murders a bunch of people, whether that weapon is a gun or a truck or a knife or whatever, a bomb. It's they're going to destroy the nature of the crime, and they're going to destroy the nature of society's response to it. And it's it could have been considered at some point in time, in some point in history, when there wasn't the degree of birth control available, and when a woman's personal identity and value were inseparable from society's connection of her honor and integrity and her social status to the state of being chaste, rape might have been much more traumatic than it is now, when you can walk away from it and it doesn't make you not marriage material. It doesn't affect your ability to be self-supporting by or to have support in your adult life by marrying someone who's going to support you, because you don't have to do that. It's a violent crime, and it's as violent as any other getting beaten up or getting robbed, getting mugged, whatever. But all of this combined just makes the entire process that feminists are going through really not dangerous as in somebody's going to get physically injured dangerous, but dangerous as in this is going to make things worse in terms of male-female relationships, and this
Absolutely.
is going to make things worse in terms of how we deal with crime and how we protect people from it, and how individuals protect themselves, and how we protect people from being falsely accused of crimes that they didn't commit.
Yeah, Sweden's fucked. But not, I mean, it's raped. Sweden's raped because they don't have sex anymore. They just have rape. That's what they do now. There's not going to be, romance is dead there if this is actually, if this is all true, which again, we're getting sources from other places, who knows. But if this is true, and I could see them doing that, there is no romance in Sweden anymore. There's no waking up to a BJ, there's no spontaneous acts of sex. None of that is going to happen. There's no happy endings and none of that shit.
There's an awful lot of rape fantasies, particularly involving swarthy men from down south.
Yes. I wonder if that was, now that this has gone through, I wonder if it's actually going to prevent any actual rapes, like violent rapes. We'll have to see. I mean, if they make it illegal, then that should do it, right? So, anyway.
Well, all sex is rape, but that doesn't mean you can be racist, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, right. Oops, sorry. I shouldn't do that. I'm speaking out of turn. That's way worse. Goodbye, Sweden. It was nice knowing you. Hopefully I can still get my cheap ass furniture because I like the shelves that you guys make. All right, so
and
moving
the meatballs and the Muppet Chefs
and the chocolate.
Okay,
Okay,
and the balls. I mean, meatballs. I mean, you know what I mean.
Yes. Oh, I got some super chats before we go to the next story. Frank Tomeo gives us $2 Canadian and says, "What happens if you give it to yourself?" I missed the context. I apologize, Frank. Joey Jojo gives us $5 and says, "Real doll, oxytocin medicine, VR dating games, and or a fleshlight. All of that means I no longer have to worry about hurting women with my sexuality." I think the sales of those things might start going up in Sweden. It doesn't actually sound like that terrible an idea. Frank Tomeo gives another $2 Canadian and says, "Is it rape in Sweden if you use a fan on yourself?" Redicus gives us $5 and says, "How long till the first preemptive rape accusation by the husband because he was drunk?" Xerax gives us $5 and writes, Harvey Weinstein, they always said patience was a virtue. Why didn't I listen? Blave Kaiser gives us $15 and says, so bromances and sex dolls hurt women, and now all sex is rape. I know Allison said this is a joke, but if someone finds out a way for 2 sperm cells to make a baby, how are traps not going to rule the world? They probably will. Frank Tomeo gives us $2 Canadian and says, no happy endings, crying huddled in corner. And Redicus gives us $2 and says, don't worry about IKEA. They left Sweden ages ago. Good. Good. All right. So last story. Max.
Fucked up when IKEA fucking leaves your country.
Yeah, right.
Your one greatest export rather.
Max, would you do the
Yeah,
honors?
this country is dodgy and stodgy. We're leaving it. We, IKEA, are leaving this country because we find it cheaply packaged.
You know you're fucked up when. Yeah, okay, so this is my story. Before I start, I just want to tell you guys that I will be reporting on a story that came out of Australia. And before I, just about a minute ago, I just asked in the chat for the people that are watching this live, I asked if there were anybody that was listening to us that were Australian. And there is this gentleman named Zazik2112, or 2112 rather, if you're a proper Rush fan. I asked him, how would you pronounce the word Paris? Or Paris, and he said Paris, right? Even though the proper way of pronouncing it is Paris. So when I say the word Melbourne in the upcoming story, I don't want you to give me shit for not pronouncing it Melbourne, all right?
Melbourne.
Now, with that out of the way, one of the leads for the Melbourne production of the famous stage musical American Idiot has been fired 24 hours before the show was supposed to open. Why? Take one good goddamn guess. You don't have to. You know what it's all
We
about.
know what it's about.
All right. The lead's name was Lyndon Furnell, and he announced the reason for his firing on his Facebook page. Quote, yesterday I was fired from American Idiot on account of serious misconduct. I wasn't asked to explain, give my account, dispute it, or attempt resolution. The reason for his firing was as follows. Quote, it happened in the moments following this scene. Johnny and what's-her-name are dimly lit while another scene takes place in the foreground. Some off-mic character banter takes place between us in the background. One night, I wasn't careful and made a mistake. It was a particularly hot night in an old theater without suitable aircon, and we were both comically sweaty. Without thought, I made a crude allusion to menstruation amongst the banter. It was in poor taste and a lame attempt at humor. The kind of thing you say to make your friends go, ugh, gross. I found out later that same night via text conversation with her that it had made her very uncomfortable and thrown off her show. Naturally, when I discovered the fact, I apologized immediately and said that I would do what was necessary to avoid making that mistake again, and reassured that I definitely did not intend to cause hurt or discomfort. I made a poor judgment call, assumed too much comfort in a work friendship. I apologized again for the upset it caused. Unbeknownst to me at the time, she had also gone to management. Apparently she didn't intend for this to happen, but it did happen, and here we are. The climate is a sensitive one, and there appears to be little room for nuance, intention, or even an accurate portrayal of events. To that woman that was playing what's-her-name, I just want to give a firm and hearty fuck you. And you are truly the idiot America, or the idiot Australian, rather.
That's right. So this guy is talking in a background. He's basically making background noise on the scene, and it got picked up by the microphone. He made a joke about menstruation, and it cost him his job. Oh my God.
There's so much wrong with this. Like, first of all, before we get into any of this stuff about the actual thing, like, I grew up with this image of Australians as particularly tough people, deserving of a level of respect for their toughness that is unique to Australia, simply because of the environment in which they live and the way in which the country started out. And and it's always been upheld until Australian feminists became sort of the forefront of their social response to everything, and they've destroyed it. It doesn't mean that I changed my opinion of Australian men. I mean, I met several of them when we were there, and they're tough people. There seem to be a fair number of Australian women who are tough people too. But apparently, there's a breed of Australian women that are even softer than spoiled rich white American women, which is pretty damn soft, you know. And it just that saddens me because like here I grew up in a country where none of the spiders are likely to kill you.
Yeah.
None of them have that. We've got black widows and brown recluse, and they're both mostly throughout the entire country. They're both mostly easy to avoid. They're not that big. They're not that scary. I wouldn't want one on me, but we don't have the scope of animals that can kill you, and an environment that is tough outside of urban areas and things like that. And it's just that's just in and of itself, aside from everything else, the feminist effect on the reputation of the tough Australian is something to mourn as a loss. Uh, that said, it's you're the idea that women's periods are something sacred that can't be joked about is offensive. Like, I don't usually care to call things offensive and make a big deal about it, but what that does is separate out a waste product, a bodily waste product, and menstrual blood is a waste product. It is a waste product the way that poop is a waste product. You aren't going to use it, so your body expels it, and there's not a significant difference in that, it's not germy or something. No, it grows bacteria. There's actually really dangerous things that can happen if it's not properly expelled and so on. It's not sacred. I know there are people that are maybe pagan or feminists that are listening going, yes, it is. It's a sacred sign of motherhood, blah, blah, blah. No, it's a bodily waste product. And yeah, it's a reminder of women's role in reproduction. And it's a reminder that part of women's role in reproduction is the privilege of getting to be the carrier, the person who houses and protects basically a brand new human being for the first 9 months of the person's life, before they're born, the entirety of their gestation, as long as nothing goes wrong. But it's not sacred, and treating it like it's sacred, that's one of the reasons that women are seen as weak. You can't do an ordinary thing that all mammals deal with without acting like it's sacred and you have to have special treatment because of it. Get over it. It's just a bodily function. It can be joked about like any other bodily function. And if you wouldn't get offended by a fart joke, you have no business getting offended by period jokes.
Well, there you go.
So, for any women out there who work with men and are perhaps thinking about making a minor complaint to management about that man's language, you should know there's no such thing as a minor complaint in that context. You may just want the boss to make sure that man doesn't make that kind of period joke again. You don't mind working with him, but you're uncomfortable with the period jokes and you'd like them to happen a bit less. But if you explain this to your manager, even in terms as clear as that, all they're going to hear is, holy shit, I'm going to get sued and this is going to look really bad for PR if I don't sack this man right now, if I don't take the swiftest, harshest action I possibly can right now, then we're all fucked. So bear that in mind if you want to make a minor complaint. It will get turned into a major complaint.
Yes, and thanks to this bitch, she turned this guy, he turned this guy onto the Boulevard of Broken Dreams. He will probably not likely go on holiday anytime soon. He's probably gonna be asking for some Novocaine. Waiting. Is he waiting for a job? You get the point.
I do. I got what you're coming from. One thing I will say, Lyndon Furnell, the guy who was fired, he did find another job, so he is not out of work. So I'm sure that he's going to be okay. That's one. Secondly, Hannah, don't worry about your thoughts on Australian men, because where this took place, I believe, Max, it was Melbourne, right? As I understand it, Melbourne is the San Francisco of Australia, so it is.
Oh, well.
It prides itself on being the most progressive city. In fact, it was competing with another city for that title, and it's basically where all of their feminists and arts and entertainment stuff is. I believe that is the case. That is
well, cities in general, just like any other, same with America and Canada. And,
sure.
And Britain. The deeper you go into the cities, the more sort of social justice progressivist it gets, because
the more
it
sheltered
is the pervasive
people are.
narrative.
That's also because more sheltered people are. People who are more sheltered, who don't have to deal with the reality of the world, and like everybody jokes about it's me against the world. Well, that's true. It's you against the world, and everything in it is trying to kill you. And it's your job to survive long enough to have a life.
Especially if you're in Australia.
Yeah, well, yeah, and the more sheltered people are from everything that's trying to kill them, the more first world problems they're going to bitch about, because they don't have anything real to bitch about. And this is an example of that. But there's something else in this that's I think we all kind of missed earlier. But if a guy has a problem with another guy, he goes and talks to him about it, and that's pretty normal. If they can't settle it that way, then maybe it progresses in a workplace to unfriendly competition and things like that before it ever ends up in a manager's office. This idea of the manager's office, going to the manager's office being the first thing that you do in response to being displeased with something that somebody did in the workplace, that's an alien thing that women do in comparison to men. You can go talk to somebody if you're not happy about something. You might discover they think you're an idiot, and they might argue with your complaint. But at least you've aired your grievance and you have a chance to work things out. And yeah, I personally think that this particular grievance was bullshit, and a snowflake grievance. But to go into the manager's office and complain to the manager before ever even talking to the person that you have a grievance with, and maybe airing things out a little bit, and I realized that using the phrase airing things out in reference to a period joke is probably also a period joke. But
I'm going to go to HR with this. You're going to lose your job and your family.
I am HR. That's my middle initial is R.
Oh, crap.
And HR is one of my nicknames back home.
So you identify as HR is what you're saying?
Yes, I identify as HR. You have to tell me about it, which means you have to air your grievance directly with the person you have it with.
Well,
but
as long as I'm down,
because you're a guy.
As long as I'm upwind when it happens, it's okay.
There you go. I
identify as MS. Read into that what you want.
It is. That's perfect.
Methylated spirits.
Now we all have MS. I'm going to apply for disability. Well, not yet, because I haven't had MS long enough. Usually it takes a while before it hits that level. But in any case, yeah, no, it's one of the differences between men and women that makes women look weak to men, and really makes sheltered women look weak to women who are less sheltered and who learn to deal with things closer to the way a man deals with them than sheltered women do, is that tendency to follow the first grade tattletale code. And it used to be, you get told nobody likes a tattletale. Now you get told you better be a tattletale because if you deal with it yourself, you're in trouble. You can't do that in real life. It might work in your first grade classroom, but in real life, when you go to complain to an authority about something, there is no middle ground. There is no minor response. You have called down the hand of God on whoever you complained about. And you have no business then complaining that they were too harsh. You had to know that when you went into the office in the first place. And if you didn't want that to happen, your recourse is talk to the person you have a problem with first. Deal with people on a human level instead of calling down authority on everybody that you have any minor disagreement with. And there is no reason in the world why women cannot learn to deal with conflict the way men deal with conflict. And there are things that maybe men can learn from the way women deal with conflict too. They're not necessarily all, we should do it this way, but look what happens when they do this is one. But the idea that it should be this different and women have to be uniquely protected like that. As long as feminists are calling for that, they have no business claiming that men and women are equal. Because this is an area in which men are exponentially tougher and smarter than women.
Yeah, as usually it's true that usually these kinds of people, they go to authorities for top-down solutions, and that's how you get these. Well, I mean, you can go all into politics and everything about this like appeal to authority to get things done, and not do things just by talking to somebody. That's happens all the time. I have a lot of experience with it where, something that could have been solved very easily, that was extremely trivial, turns into people getting fired. And we can't even talk about who did it or why, because the HR departments, they protect the anonymity of the employee, and I've done it as a manager. I've been in positions where women have had complaints that were employees, that I witnessed the stuff that happened, and I know that they're extremely trivial, but my hands are tied, and I'm in a position where I have to go to HR and I have to introduce them, and the HR department goes to the regional manager, and of course they want to avoid any like sort of legal problems, so they just go ahead and say you got to fire this person, and I've had to do it. And when they ask me why, I have to tell them I'm sorry, it was a human resources issue with an employee, and I can't give you any more details than that, but you got to go. And it's really unfortunate because we lose good people that way, because it offends somebody's sensibilities and they don't know why it happened, and it's just not good. I just don't like it. No, sir, I don't like it.
No, that's understandable. And I've never had to be in the higher management position, but I've had to stand by as a witness when because you can't reprimand somebody anymore at work without a witness in the room to be able to attest to what you did or did not say or do.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's gotten that bad. And HR, their role is not to protect anybody. Their role is not to prevent conflict. Their role is not to help prevent anything like sexual harassment or racism or anything like that. None of that is their role. Their role is to protect the company from getting sued by somebody who has one of those complaints.
Yep.
that facilitates a lawsuit. And that's how they do it. And you can almost guarantee the other end of going to human resources, and most women don't figure this out till too late, a lot of men don't either, is that when you go to human resources with a complaint, you didn't just put a target on the person you're complaining about. You put a target on your own back as well, because now they know you're somebody who is a threat to sue the company. And so now in most companies, especially bigger companies, your manager and your manager's boss and so on they're going to be looking for reasons to write you up and reasons to reprimand you in other ways, reasons to give you warnings and so on. So they have a paper trail so they can get rid of you because you are a threat. So both sides of that are a problem. So if you ever have to go, if you're ever in a position where somebody has made your life miserable in the workplace and you absolutely have to go to human resources, you got to do 3 very important things. Document the incident to hell and back. Document everything about the human resources visit and everything that you do and deal with afterwards, and start looking for a new job, because the one you're at is going to become a hell to work in. And that's so all this crap about human resources being helpful and women relying on human resources and so on, like it's an area of stupidity.
Yeah.
It's an area of largely female stupidity.
You know, I'm pretty sure human resources is another one of those euphemisms. Another of those nice-sounding titles for something that's really not nice at all. But I'm not sure what it's a euphemism for. That's the nature of newspeak. You sort of have to reverse engineer it to figure out what the original thing is they're talking about.
Is it resources only for relations. Humans?
It's just they're trying to humanize the idea of public relations, and that's all it is. It's the company's public relations with its customers. You know.
Mm-hmm. I think you might be onto something there. Okay, so I got a couple super chats, and then we'll close it out with some final statements. So Redicus gives us $5 and says, "So the vagina monologue cast needs to be fired, right?" The one person. I've never seen the vagina monologues, but I mean, it's just one. It's one actor, right? That's why they call it the monologues.
No, it's a series of monologues from, I think,
from
different
actors.
People.
Okay, so yeah,
because they're all telling the stories firsthand of characters.
The vagina monologues is just what I did to your mom last Saturday. I don't know what you're talking about plays.
Sweet burn.
Strapped her to my face and recited the alphabet.
Oh my God, will I ever recover? Frank Tomeo gives us $2 Canadian and says, "Feminists are cancer, fucking arse cancer." Redicus $2 and says, "Guy was gulagged." Yeah, pretty much. And Hoki Bukisa gives us $1.99 and says, "Slaves are human resources." Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's true.
It is true. It is true.
It's what we did before we had industry.
We had human resources before we even had jobs.
And shit, we just had human.
Okay, so before I close out, I just want to tell you guys a little backstory. So years ago, when Gamergate was riding high on the hog, it was like the thing everyone was talking about. Shortly after, we got kicked out of the Calgary Expo, and I was looking around the internet, watching videos to see who else was talking about this important discussion around not just journalism in the video games market, you know, but specifically the way people were having discussions around narratives in general, way outside of that, just criticizing the media, getting a sense of what was what the direction that our culture was headed. You know, shortly after we got kicked out of the Calgary Expo, and I found this guy who made these videos where he was analyzing Metal Gear Solid 2 and how it related to social justice. And I watched his videos and I was enthralled. I thought they were great. And I was, as someone who, you know, like many people who played MGS2, I was disappointed by the fact that I couldn't be Snake the whole time. But when the video series was over, I was so blown away that I felt like I had to have this guy on as a guest. And I'm talking about Max Darrett, who's with us now. And I had him on HBR after that because I really liked the content. I actually remember the animation we did for the ad, and I did the artwork for it, and, you know, because it was a lot of fun. At the time, Oliver Campbell was a regular on our show. And It was good having him on. I really liked the way he thought. I love the conclusions he got in his videos. And so Max became a regular on Honey Badger Radio for a long time. And he met with Karen in Toronto, and he helps us with the write-ups, and he does the Breaking Badger, and he's absolutely an indispensable resource that has made things so good for us here at HBR. And but he's not going to be able to stay with us anymore, and so Max isn't going to be doing any more shows, at least for the time being. So but I just wanted to tell you, Max, that I'm very grateful for all of the stuff that you've done for us, and I'm sad to see you leave, but I wish you good luck in whatever it is you do, and I know that it's it was time, and but I'm glad that you were with us. So would you I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to say, but I just want you to know that hopefully one day I'll get to meet you in real life, and it was good having you with us.
Well, thanks so much, Brian. I don't know where to begin expressing my gratitude for the friendship and the mentorship that everybody at Honey Badger Radio has offered me, the opportunity to use the Honey Badger Radio platform as a place where I can express my own personal views, something that I never thought that I would actually have the opportunity to do, but I'm very grateful for it. Like even back in the day, back when it was strictly like Allison, Karen, Hannah, Crystal, Anna, I respected them so much, and I just thought that I would never get to a point where I could actually be on a show with these people or talk to them regularly, and it was a literal dream come true. And for all that, I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to be able to do that. I'm only taking off now just because there's so much stuff that's going on in my life right now, because I'm 24, I'm about to leave school. I need to start thinking about what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, and I need to sort of push away certain things in my life that I've become accustomed to, so I can make room for greater priorities. Now, that's not saying that I'm leaving the internet entirely. I'll still be doing videos semi-regularly on my personal channel, which you can go check out. I'll hopefully I can come back to Honey Badger Radio every now and then, sometime in the future, just as a panelist, just to talk about certain stories. I hope you guys aren't going to completely just close the door.
No. You can come back anytime you want. The door is open. Stay in the Discord. Don't completely unplug.
We're starting to have guests now. Maybe you can be a guest every week.
Okay. Well, that's something we'll figure out. But yeah, my time here has been absolutely wonderful. You guys are all wonderful, and I want to echo what you just said, Brian. Hopefully, I get the chance to meet you, Hannah, Mike, Allison. I've already met Karen. But yeah, the rest of you someday, because you're all wonderful people, and my life is.
We have a jam. I demand we jam with.
Oh, fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck yeah! Absolutely. Next time I come to England, because I have my family's trying to get dual citizenship with Britain, because my mother's from Britain. I can travel there more often. Maybe someday we can hang out. I'll make sure to bring my acoustic. That'd be dope.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I don't know. I think I said pretty much everything that needs to be said. Thanks. And thanks to all the people that have supported me, who are listening in the chat, and the people who have commented on the Breaking Badger videos. You guys have been fantastic. You've made the whole process definitely worthwhile. And that's about it. Thanks.
Yeah, and definitely, guys, Max is going to keep making videos on his own channel, so just subscribe to him. I mean, just subscribe to him over there, and when he puts up a new YouTube poop with Shoe on Head in it, you'll see it, or whatever new video game he's gonna break down. I know he just did the Half-Life series, and they're very well done. I love the stuff for Metal Gear, and I love the stuff for the Ico trilogy, I guess you could call it. So yeah, definitely subscribe to Max. And that's all I wanted to say. I'm glad that you came, and anytime you want to just pop in and say what's up, you can. I'm going to go ahead and take us into the after show, where we're going to be looking at this article from the New Yorker entitled 7 Signs That Your Man's Masculinity is Non-Toxic. I'm sure it's going to be a very educational and not at all misandrist article. So if you guys, it's eco. Yeah, you're right. It is. I don't know. I used to say ICO. I know, it's okay. I used to say ICO when I first got it because no one was telling you the original game, and I never shook it. And I know it's not, because even later when Trico, when the last one came out, Last Guardian, he was calling him Trico. So, but I just can't get. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not as bad as Allison. I got it.
I can't tell you how much shit I got for pronouncing it ICO originally. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's eco," as if that's the one thing they should be focusing on in the entire fucking video.
I understand that. It's like when people when people were saying in the Street Fighter, people were saying Ryu, it would drive me up the wall. It wasn't pronounced Ryu. It's not pronounced Ryu, guys. It's Ryu. But I used to say Ryu when I was 14, so I'm not going to get too angry. All right, anyways, so we're going to go into the after show. I want to thank my panelists, Mike and Hannah and Max. And I want to thank the people who helped with the write-ups, Max, Mike J, and my wife, the stapler. And I would like to thank you guys most of all, because without you, we're just shouting into the void. And I'm glad that we have some people to shout at. I didn't mean it that way, but you know what I mean. Finally, I have a couple super chats I should probably read. Zeranx gives us $5 and says, "Sorry to have you go, Max, but at least we made you toxic enough that you can meet the world." And Frank Tomeo gives us $5 Canadian and says, "Go to the shoe, Max, and let me know. I will buy you a beer."
What's the shoe? Is that the name of some popular pub somewhere?
Frank Tomeo is Canadian. So maybe he's talking about a place. If you're in Toronto, Frank, maybe, you guys, I don't know, you guys could work something out.
Yeah, message me on Twitter, man.
Yeah, so there you go. Message him on Twitter. We have all the contact stuff in the low bar. It's been there all the time. So, Max, stay yellow. You guys, love you lots. We will see you guys the next time, and have a good one.